Welcome to the What's Your Deal podcast, where we discuss business acquisitions, investments, management, and exit strategies. I'm your host, Matt Euler. Let's dive in. Welcome to another episode of What's Your Deal podcast. This is part 2 with John Potenza. And if you missed part 1, you need to go back. John is a friend of mine. He's also a coach of mine, but he's a very accomplished combat sports martial artist. He's been training for almost 45 years and is proficient in over 16 different styles, which is unheard of. He's won championships. He's won gold medals in championships. He's been inducted into the Hall of Fame for martial arts 10 times. Amazing individual. So you might be asking, why is he here? The reason he's here is because it's amazing to see what similarities there are between one craft, in John's case, martial arts and combat sports, and another craft, which might be business. And so in part 1, we went real deep into some of the similarities that apply to John's sport and business. And even though John's sport is much more amplified because the consequences are so significant, they apply directly to business. So John, thank you for joining us for episode 2.
Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, absolutely. So this episode, I really want to focus on the mental game. And in business, what I have seen is, as I'm guiding people through trying to buy businesses or even when struggling in business, they freeze up. They get too afraid to even move. They let anger control their activities. They go dark. There's all kinds of consequences because of the mental game with the struggles that come with business. And again, as I mentioned, part of what I love so much about having you here is that your sport amplifies all of this because the consequences are so great.
Yeah, absolutely.
In everything you do. So can you share with us a little bit about some of the mental game that you see, that you went through as a person who competed for a long, long time in many different styles, and your students?
Yeah, absolutely. The mental aspect of fighting is so important. It's so drastic, and it's all across the board. We have to deal with everything from fear to overconfidence to anxiety to just outright being terrified to, everything across the board. There's so many different avenues of emotions you have to deal with and have the mental capacity to be able to overcome those things and turn them around, right? So fear, of course, is always important. It's always a big one in combat sports. When we fight, everybody's afraid. I don't care what anybody tells you. When you go in there, everybody has a little ounce of fear in you, and that's a good thing. You need that fear because that's what keeps you sharp, and that keeps you alive, right? If you don't have fear, you're going overconfident, that's when you wind up walking into something bad and you get into some trouble. But you have to have a balance of this mindset of being able to turn it on and off and say, all right, well, how do I channel this fear and redirect it push it into my training? And how do I take that fear and roll it up into confidence? Now how do I overcome that? And it's a really cool aspect of fighting, of how deep the mindset goes of dealing with all these different emotions.
Well, and I'm gonna interrupt you on occasion if I can, because I want to elicit everything I can out of you. As our audience knows, I'm huge on recipes, right? And so when I hear you talk, I'm hearing recipes. And so fear can be oftentimes fear isn't real in life, right? We get afraid of stuff all day long that never ever happens. And it was in the combat sports world, they're going to get hit, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
Fear is real. It is a dangerous situation they're heading into, and they need to defend themselves.
Right.
So it's a whole different ball game. In business, I can talk people through if they're getting hung up or they're so anxious about something happening. I go, so what's the likelihood of that? Have you ever seen it happen before? Do you know of anybody where it has happened before? If it has, what did they do about it? I mean, I can walk them through it.
Right.
I'm imagining, and I'd love it if you'd share, how did you deal with it? I mean, you step in the ring, you know the person, your opponent, is there to hurt you. No question about it.
Right.
And your objective is to hurt them to the point that you're successful in that sport.
Right.
How did you walk yourself through that fear? How did you channel it the way you just described?
So basically you have the 2 avenues of fear, right? You have face everything and rise, or forget everything and run, right? Those are acronyms for fear.
Face everything and rise.
Or forget everything and run. You have 2 options, fight or flight, right? And
that's great.
You have to embrace that. And if your acronym is to forget everything and run, you're in the wrong sport. You shouldn't be fighting.
Right.
You need to go somewhere else. Go play checkers or tennis or something. I don't know. But you shouldn't be fighting. So we have to be able to adapt to anything that comes our way, and we have to face everything and rise. We have to say, all right, well, I'm scared. Yeah, I'm nervous. I know that guy's going to try to hurt me. He's a big, bad, scary-looking dude, and it's intimidating. But how do I overcome that? What do I do? So mentally, I prepare myself. All right, well, he's big and he's strong and he's athletic. I'm big and I'm strong and I'm athletic. He's another human just like I am. He puts his pants on the same way I do. Nothing is different. Just because the guy's face is all mangled up and his ears look like Shrek and he's like, right. It's a scary looking thing. The guy's like, he's like, oh my God. But when you get in there and you start fighting, you realize he's just another guy. He's training the same way I am. So when you channel that fear into confidence and you start saying, all right, well, I'm going to prepare my training better because of this fear. I know that this guy's good at these particular movements. This is his style of fighting. He's good at this. So I'm going to get really better at that, but also learn how to counter it and beat it. What do I, if he's a boxer, I'm not going to go and box him. I'm going to wrestle him. I'm a better wrestler. I'm going to wrestle him. If he's a better wrestler, I'm going to box him. Take him out of his comfort zone by channeling that fear. So it's kind of a roundabout way to get there, but you have to have all aspects covered of dealing with that fear and how to channel it to a positive thing.
So in business, somebody might be afraid of, for people that I help buy businesses, they're afraid of actually taking the next step. Like, what if it's a mistake? I fail, I lose all my family's money, I file bankruptcy, I lose my house. I mean, it goes on and that conversation goes on and on and on. And the idea of bringing it to reality, which what I heard you say is that it's just another person that you're competing against, right? So it's not bigger than it is.
Right.
It just is that.
Yeah.
Same thing in business. And then the other thing I heard you say is that you channel it to confidence.
Yeah.
So how do you do that? And maybe you can think about it through the lens, because I know you have owned and still own lots of businesses.
Yeah.
How do you channel that fear of failure, which is usually what people in business are worried about, to confidence?
So two things on that. So one is a lot of people are afraid to fail, not just for themselves, but for the people around them. Right? So that's a major thing with fighters and business alike, but big with fighters. I hear it all the time as a fight coach. Guys say, oh man, I hope I don't lose. I don't want to let my family down. I don't want my friends down. And I tell them, you're not going in there for your family and your friends. You're going in there to test you, to become the best version of you could possibly be, right? So our goal is to make you the best you can be. Doesn't matter. Your family, friends are going to love you no matter what. The same with business, right? If you open a business and it fails, your family's not going to chastise you and make fun of you because your business failed. Hopefully, if they're a good support system, they're going to help you grow from that, right, and get bigger from it. So that's really important, is having the whereabouts to know that you're fighting for you, not for the crowd. Right? And people get roped into that pretty easily. I like that. So the second avenue is to bring things to confidence. So if we go about fighting and we're worried about fear and failing in front of our friends and family, but if we can channel that back to confidence and have our own confidence of not just winning, but how to fight back from it, right? So even though I may lose a fight, that doesn't mean that it's over. If I can come back from that, I can build that confidence from that fight and say, all right, well, I lost because this happened and I did this right or wrong. And now we have a blueprint like we talked about in episode 1. We have something to fall back on and say, all right, how do we grow from this? And how do we build confidence from this fear? Now, next time I fight, that fear is gone. I'm not afraid of that situation anymore because I've now gone back to my gym. I've trained everything that led to that failure. And now I built it up into a strength. Now I've become strong at it. And I'll tell you a quick story with that. I didn't lose very many fights. I wound up being pretty good at what I did. And one of my grappling tournaments, it was a world championship. It was a big deal. And I didn't train for it as usual. I was kind of being cocky and I went into it. I was very confident, overconfident. And I faced a guy who was an excellent wrestler. We started tie up. We went to the ground. I went for a leg lock on him. He scrambled out and he got full mount. Full mount, for those who don't know what it is, I'm on my back. The guy is sitting on top of me and I'm in a bad position, right? So I'm kind of stuck. And one of my go-tos, one of my A, B's, and C's for that is I give my arm up. I put my arm out so the guy will attack this arm. Usually he's off balance and I can escape. And I have a very confident escape from that position. And I knew exactly what was going to happen. I waited there for a minute. He wasn't moving, so I said, all right, I gave my arm up. He took the arm like he knew he would, took the bait. I rolled him up, and when I rolled up on top of him, he was on his shoulder blades and his kind of legs were up, and I was pressing down on him. For the escape, all I needed to do was pull my arm out and move to the side. But I decided I want to punish him. I was going to grind on him and make him uncomfortable for putting me in a bad position. I let my ego get the better of me. So I ripped out, and I didn't rip out, rather I started pressing down on him. And as I'm pressing down on him, his head slides out to the side, and he extends my arm out this way, and I hit his little click, 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 click in my elbow. I was like, man, I know I'm caught. You know? I had to tap, and it was a tough pill to swallow because it was my own fault. I walked into the situation overconfident, and I let that happen. But I went back to my gym and I trained that defense over and over and over again. So I knew it would never happen again. And I took that out of the equation. From that day forward, I never got caught in that position again because I obsessed over it. I was like, well, that's not going to happen again because I'm going to make confidence out of it. And I know that I'm going to pass. And if I don't pass, I'm going to do A, B, and C. These are my go-tos from here.
Yeah, great story. So many gems in there. So let me ask you, that match, you talk about being overconfident. Did you have fear?
No, that wasn't a fear in that one. It was more of cockiness and overconfident in that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was definitely overconfident.
So appropriate fear is certainly in your world, but even in mine, is not bad.
No, it's a good thing. And like I said earlier, that fear keeps you alive. And had I had that bit of fear, I would not have stayed on top of him. I would have ripped that arm out and passed, and I would have won the match for sure. I would have got on top and did what I was going to do, but I didn't have that fear. And I needed it. sometimes you need fear. Fear is important. It keeps you sharp. That little edge that kind of keeps you from being cocky and overconfident and doing stupid things. Well,
and it's such a fine line, right? Because fear can stop people from taking any action.
Yeah.
And then I heard you share recently that that being undefeated is a curse.
Yeah.
And that we learn from our failures far more than we learn from our successes. But it's such a fine line.
Yeah.
I mean, none of us want to fail if we can help it.
Right, of course. We're all competitive, and if you're in business or in fighting, you should be competitive. You have to be. But yeah, you kind of have to take your lumps to grow, and it's important. When you don't lose, you start getting overconfident, you start getting cocky, you start getting complacent, and then you start putting pressure on yourself on top of all that, which is a whole other element. Now you start to put this pressure on yourself like, shit, I haven't lost in 10 fights. What if I lose now? I can't. I don't want to lose now. Everybody's cheering for me. Everybody thinks I'm the guy. I'm the winner. And now you start putting that outside perspective again, and it's not a good thing. You put that pressure is no good. So, yeah, you learn more from losses, and you grow better because now you start putting it past you. You put your ego past you because you're not worried about, oh man, I didn't lose in 10 fights. Now I got to worry about this 11th one. I've lost. I won. I've come here and there, and it's not a big deal. It's kind of an interesting perspective when you look at it that way.
I can see that. Well, and in business, measured risks are what I focus on, and not that I still get afraid about something every day. I mean, it's just as common for me. Yeah. But I take measured risks. I'm not interested in rolling the dice and losing everything, but I am interested in learning and growing and stretching and trying to continue to do more and be better. Right. So if you can talk us through this a little bit, have you ever been in a situation, and I'm guessing based on reading your 3-page biography, the answer is no. But yeah, some people they feel fear and they literally get paralyzed. I mean, they're afraid it's never going away, and they go so deep into it, it literally multiplies on itself.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that? When you start feeling it's getting out of hand, or even how do you train your students? It's getting out of hand. How do you reel it back in? When you have to.
Confidence builders. So small confidence building exercises are important in those kind of situations, right? So we get people all the time of all different walks of life that come through the gym, and they decide they want to fight early on, and they say, I want to fight. And then they get in a bad position in sparring, just in training in the gym, and they start like freaking out. Oh my God, I'm in a bad spot. But if you can build that confidence and start, all right, well, let's dissect this for a second. You're here now, we stop it and we slow it down. Let's slow everything down, go through it step by step, and here's your A, B's, and C's of how to get out of this situation. And we start dissecting that. I got another quick story for you. So I was a coach for Fort Dix, a military base in New Jersey, and I was teaching combatives over there and teaching grappling and fighting and all this stuff. We had a team getting ready for the All Army Combatives tournament in Fort Hood, Texas. This was back in 2012, and I had a group of fighters who weren't fighters. They never fought. They were just a group of people.
Of men.
Yeah. Men and women. We had it was just a group of, it's kind of a hodgepodge mix of people I think one guy had some experience, maybe two guys had a little jiu-jitsu or something, and none of them ever did anything. I was like, well, this
wow.
And they were like, all right, you have 2 weeks to get these guys in shape for this All Army Combatives. This All Army Combatives tournament is like the Super Bowl of fighting for the military. It's a big deal. And there's three different levels of it. You do empty hand striking with grappling. You do grappling first, an empty hand strike to the ground. Then you do full MMA in the cage for round 3. Anyway, getting ready for this, we had one guy, a young kid, he was a young soldier, and he was sparring training, which is training. And in training, we were allowing open hand strikes to the head just to kind of get moving. And he was underneath this guy, and one of the other guys was hitting him, and he started panicking, hyperventilating, freaking out, panicking, completely losing it. So we stopped. break it down, stop. All right, get a hold of yourself. We had to stand him up, get him outside, get fresh air. Once we got him calmed down, it's all right, get back on your back. This guy's gonna get on top of you. We're gonna start to slow. As he's swinging here, we're gonna do this, this, and this to break this down. We're gonna start controlling this position. And that built that confidence for him to not just give up and freeze and say, I don't want to be on this thing, get me out of here. And he wound up doing pretty well. And he progressed and did really well through his training, getting ready for everything, because we were able to dissect it and break it down and give him some time to think about it. And that's how we accomplished dealing with that paralyzing fear to some kind of confidence of knowing that, all right, it's not as bad as it looked. I just didn't know what to do.
That's amazing. Yeah, so we talked about in business, it's not as instant as what in the combat sports. In business, we can say, all right, just take a break. I'm gonna sleep on this. I'm gonna think it through overnight. I'll take action tomorrow and ground a little bit. So in that circumstance, you were able to do that with the person you were training, your student.
Yeah.
To say, okay, stop, pause, and gave him a tool for his toolbox for how to deal with it, that it's not as bad as you think it is, and which is excellent. So we talked in part 1 about reps, and I think we'll probably talk about reps in part 2 and part 3. But reps are so important. How do you get enough reps in for somebody to have confidence with only 2 weeks and no experience?
Yeah, I mean, we had 8-hour days to train, and I just put them through what I felt were the worst case scenarios for everything we want to deal with.
I bet they loved that.
And yeah, they were super thrilled. They were so on board. Yeah. Oh, good, we get to get punched in the face again. This is great. It's going to be an awesome day. I can't wait for tomorrow. But that's what we do. We put them in these bad positions over and over and make them comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that's such an important part of fighting, is being, through repetitions, you get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And then that makes you build that confidence again. You turn that fear around to confidence and knowing that, all right, I've been here so many times. This guy's been in this position, punching me in the face, and I've been here I'm not worried anymore. You see that in MMA. If you watch the UFC or any fights, there's fighters that, like back in the old UFC, if somebody got the other guy in a rear naked choke, the announcer was like, oh, it's over. He's got his back. It's going to be over. Now guys are willingly giving up their back because their defense is so good. They're so comfortable at that bad position that they'll give up position just to get out of a worse position. The guy might be punching them in the face, and they'll just turn their back. This guy will go for a choke, and this guy reverses it. And it's just being comfortable with uncomfortable, So it's kind of an interesting concept.
Well, and it certainly keeps you on your toes, right?
Sure.
I know I'm starting to use your terms. Right?
Yeah, that's good.
In business, it keeps you on your toes, and being comfortable being uncomfortable comes with experience and failure.
Yeah.
Right? When you get some reps of, man, that didn't work out the way I planned. Here's what I learned. Here's what I want to do different. I personally in business become less afraid of those failures because I know I've got more tools in my bag and I've been around the block.
Right.
And that's not the same for somebody who might be new and super skilled, but being able to get back to that calm of I know what I need to do and I know I'll figure it out even if I don't know what I need to do is an important aspect, I think, in managing fear.
Absolutely, 100%,
yeah. So what about anger?
So anger.
And anger in your story came up, right? You wanted to punish the guy, grind on him a little bit.
Anger is usually a kiss of death in our world.
Wow.
It really is. It's so underestimated. People think like, oh man, you must be angry when you fight. That's the worst thing you do. When you go into a fight angry, you start making mistakes, you get reckless, you get careless. People start reading your energy, they start reading what you're doing, and if a good fighter will pick apart an angry fighter. And they'll just piece them up little by little.
Isn't that
everything? Yeah, they swing bad intentions and all aggressive. The skilled guy just kind of moves a little bit and just stings them little by little. So we try to channel that anger because there's some anger there. Of course, you have ill will toward the other person. You want to fight and hurt that person, but you have to dial it back and again channel it to something else. So we have to take that anger and say, all right, I'm not angry. I'm anxious, but I'm not really angry. I don't want to be angry. I want to be cautious and smart and fight physical chess. I don't want to go in and just throw, hammers and see what happens. Those are the guys who get, beat fairly quickly or the careers don't last long.
That's interesting because it looks like such an angry sport.
It does.
Right? It looks like it's totally driven by anger.
Yeah. Fighters are the most nice and peaceful and funny people you ever meet in your life. It's like an ongoing joke in the fight community that we're all kind of like on the spectrum a little bit because we're like, we're just a bunch of lunatics that want to fight, but we're all goofy, always movie quotes being all day long and jokes, but they're the nicest people to be around for the most part, and very few fight with anger. They fight with intensity, but not anger. So it's a big difference.
So when you're in a fight, well, for you, if you were fighting somebody who's angry, it doesn't concern you because you've got the confidence and you know what you're doing.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Somebody who doesn't could find that fearful.
Yeah, they get intimidated. And like one of the things I teach is just for basic striking, I tell people to look here watch your opponent's upper chest area, and that does a couple of things. It tells you how they move and whatever, but it also takes away looking at their face, which some styles of fighting, boxing, and some other styles, they tell you look in the eyes and watch the eyes of your opponent. But if you get a guy with crazy eyes and he's got angry face, he's like, you're like, oh shit, it starts playing in your head like, this guy's a maniac, I don't want to fight this guy. But if I'm looking down at your chest, that goes out the window. Now I've taken away that anger issue that would affect me out of the equation. That's completely out of the equation now. And it kind of gives me more of a peace and a calm to dissect and beat that anger. So now he could be swinging like crazy, but as long as I'm focused on what I'm supposed to focus on, I can calmly decipher what needs to be done.
So in business, we don't have people as angry as they appear in your sport, but we do have clients that are angry. I've dealt with lots of attorneys that always seem to come out angry for some reason. Maybe they are just angry, I'm not sure. But that energy can be challenging to keep your composure on. And so again, if you were to think about in business, and do you have any input on that? Somebody's new to business, they're in a situation, they feel out of their league, they feel out of their element, and somebody's attacking them with anger. What should they do? What would you pull from your toolbox?
In the fight world, I say stick a jab and make space. Is that right? So we just kind of poke and stick. So in the business aspect, the same thing. You maybe want to throw a couple of gentle words out there and make some space and give it a second to think and get to the outside of the fighting circle, right? If we're right here and we're getting head to head, this is bad. But if I can get out here and start moving around, now I can start breathing and thinking and clarifying my mind instead of meeting anger with anger and fighting back aggressive. Sometimes the better choice is to step back and say, all right, what do I do? I step back and reassess the situation. Now I come back with whatever makes sense to be the next move.
Yeah.
So that's kind of our world.
So now I'm going to go down a rabbit hole because one of the things you said was breathing.
Yeah.
And I know as you're training with me, and again, I don't intend to compete in this. I love the sport.
Sure.
But when you're training me, you're helping me with my breathing. And I'm also realizing that the times that I get afraid, I hold my breath, whether it's in business or life or whatever it might be, I tend to restrict my breathing. So you just shared real quick, when somebody's attacking you, you stick and take some space and breathe.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through that? Where does breathing come in? And
so important. Such an important aspect of fighting and just life in general is being able to know when to breathe and how to breathe. When you're tense and you're aggressive and you're even just strength, right? Let's take gym lifting if you're in the bench press or whatever. Most people bench press, they hold their breath and they're pressing up, right? But if you get your breathing right when you're benching, you could lift more, you could lift longer, you can do more. Same with fighting. If I'm fighting and I'm holding my breath during fighting, I'm good for about 30 seconds. I'm going to out of breath and I'm exhausted. But if I could break that breathing down into short, smooth, relaxed breaths, I could fight all day long. So that breathing doesn't just clear your lungs, but it clears your mind and your brain. So it kind of gives you time to think. And we need that in fighting. We need to be able to know where is my break time? When do I stop and take a breath? When do I kind of relax and slow everything down and reassess? And that breathing time is time to reassess. And that goes through whether I'm attacking, defending, dealing with pain, which is a major part, right? So if I'm fighting and I'm getting kicked in the thigh repeatedly and guys are kicking, just chopping my leg up, it sucks. It hurts. That's a terrible feeling. It's like, it's a Charlie horse times 1,000 over and over again. But sometimes just stepping back and taking a couple deep breaths, I control that breathing. It's almost like a moving meditation. You clear everything, clear your thoughts, get the pain out of your mind for a second while you're breathing. That allows me to re-engage and get back to what I'm supposed to be doing rather than focusing on this leg that's now swollen up to this big. It hurts like hell. So I can forget about that for a minute. I breathe and I get back into my fight zone.
Yeah, so I just, again, I love the similarities about what we're talking about, but I see life, business, there's all kinds of areas. When I've been angry, if I just take a break and take a breath, it lets the pressure off of that anger, right? Which I don't want to express anger. It's not useful most often.
Right.
And so that's a huge tool there. If I'm feeling afraid, taking a step back, getting a breath in, bringing me back to earth. It's almost like holding breath builds that pressure that just makes everything amplified and probably worse.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So let's talk for a minute about courage. When we were chatting about what we were going to talk about, we had fear, anger, and courage. What's the difference between courage and fear? And what's your distinction there? Confidence is another word you used. Yeah.
So courage and confidence go hand in hand, but they're totally different. Right? You could be confident on the outside, but terrified on the inside. You can give a confident facade and show, like you see it a lot with fighters. Fighters get in there, they mean mug in there looking. But you get backstage, you guys like, fuck, I'm so scared, man. I hope this guy doesn't hurt me. Like, all right, dude, take a deep breath, and here we go back to breathing again,
Yeah.
But then you have real confidence, courage and confidence, and guys who are going to go in there and say, all right, I prepared. Here I am. I've done everything I need to do to prepare for this fight, and I've prepared myself in every way. I have every avenue figured out to the best of my ability, and now I just have to go execute. And then that's where that courage comes in, and you say, all right, I can be confident and courageous because I know I prepared correctly. I can charge into that fight and be ready no matter what comes.
So the courage is the willingness or ability to move beyond fear.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
So to be afraid and act anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. Since we come back to that, face everything and rise, right? So
yeah,
that's your goal. I'm a little afraid, I'm a little scared, I'm a little nervous, but I'm courageous enough to get in there. I'm still going to go in and do this. I've committed to this, and I'm going to make it happen.
Because you're prepared.
Because you're prepared, yeah.
So in business, somebody could be afraid of some bad outcome. They're not prepared. Courage is not the answer.
No.
Right? I mean, courage could still get you to take action even though you're afraid. But without the preparation, you don't have the confidence to justify the courage.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
You need those
Very
repetitions
powerful.
of everything to be ready for the proper outcome.
Yeah.
Courage without skill doesn't get you anywhere except hurt. You can lead yourself into battle where you're not ready for it. That's a bad thing. That's where guys get hurt in my world anyway.
So in business, I mean, it could be as simple as they're going to meet with a big customer, or they're going to meet with an upset customer, or they're feeling fear. They've got the courage to go do it. They're going to do it.
Right.
But the preparation is really where the key is, right? And it doesn't mean that meeting or the fight or the confrontation in business or whatever is going to go exactly as planned. But the preparation is what allows for the courage to be justified, it sounds like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's hit the nail on the head. Exactly right.
Yeah, it's so powerful. I mean, I typically think the times people get the most afraid in my world is the week before closing. Mm-hmm. I'm dealing with all kinds of issues with buyers and sellers because they're both afraid they're going to make a mistake.
Right.
And a buyer, and I'm not saying it's going to go away because there's also that emotion that comes. There's, as you alluded to, it's so much bigger than just what the event is. It's their whole life. It's their family. It's all the other add-ons
right. Yeah.
that amplify.
Sure.
Yeah. But when a buyer goes in and have not done their due diligence and they have not done their homework and they're not sure if they've got enough operating capital to get them through the first month, or they haven't studied the competition, or I could go on and on and on. That's where the preparation comes in to help alleviate some of the fear, but also give the justified courage that it's okay. I'm going to move on because I am prepared for what I'm getting into.
Right.
Yeah, that's excellent.
And it's funny, like a good point on that is that you say the week before, that's the same with fighters. Right? We deal with that last week before the fight.
Really?
Is the most stressful because everything becomes real.
Uh-huh.
That last week is when medicals are due. We have to get our blood work done. Our medicals are in. Make sure the fights are still on. Nobody gets hurt. Nobody does something stupid. And the opponents don't drop out. There's all this pressure in that last weight cut is the big thing. We have to make certain weights, and usually guys are cutting weight in that last week. It's that last week is always like that. It gets real, and then it gets really real when you're backstage wrapping your hands. Then it all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, I'm in this. There's no coming out. There's no turning back now. But it's that last week. It's funny. It's the same with fighting.
So when you just said that, I felt it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's dissect that for a minute, because I just believe that lots of people have that similar feeling of just potentially paralyzing fear. That they're about to do something. So you're backstage, you're wrapping your hands, it's game on, everybody's there. How do you get through that?
So that's where your coach comes in. That's my most important part of my job as a coach, is to be that voice in your head to remind you of that you prepared for this fight and that you are ready for this fight and that you have every tool needed to win this fight. And it's, again, falls, like we talked about in episode 1, it falls back on me if that fighter's not ready. Uh-huh. So I have to let him know that I have given him everything he has to get into that ring and get that win. So when they start getting that doubt, and I can see it in their eyes, when I'm wrapping people's hands, I get some guys are super relaxed and they're ready to go and they're confident and they got their game plan. Other guys, especially newer fighters, I start wrapping their hands up and I see their eyes getting wide and they're like getting nervous and their hands start to shake a little bit. I'm like, all right, relax, man. We've been down this road 1,000 times, and that's my time to talk to them and kind of bring them down. And sometimes I'll divert them. I'll take their mind off the fight altogether.
Okay.
Sometimes you need something else to think about. Let's talk about this or that, whatever. And but yeah, as a coach, You have to be that voice in their head at that moment when their fear kicks in, and they're almost paralyzed in fear, like, oh shit, I'm about to go in there, and that guy looks really scary at weigh-ins. I just see the size of him this morning. He looks twice the size as he was yesterday. Like right. It's the same guy that was here yesterday, man. It's all right, But that's our job as coaches, is to make sure that those guys understand we're prepared. We've done the repetitions. We've done the work. We've put in everything we needed to do to prepare for this moment. It's pretty
So I want to pull that apart too.
Sure.
So are you calling it out? Listen, I know you're afraid. I mean, do you just, here's the elephant in the room?
Sometimes. Depends on the fighter.
Depends on the fighter,
yeah,
okay.
So the fighter's mind is very different. Everybody's different. All different fighters take things differently. And some take better to positive reinforcement. Some take better to more of aggressive approach. So it really depends on the fighter. But sometimes I'll say, hey, look, I can tell you're scared. I can see it. It's okay. Use that. Channel that fear. Let's take that fear and let's bundle that into our speed and our agility and try to fine tune that into something else, and we'll channel it. And other times, I'll kind of tiptoe around a little more, little more knit gloves on, kind of like, hey, listen, when you go out there, let's do this, this, and this,
Okay.
And kind of build that confidence. Hey, you're really good at doing this. Let's go out and do this part of this.
Okay.
So you have to handle it differently depending on the fighter.
Okay. And then you alluded a little bit, I forget exactly what you said, but you alluded a little bit to the voices in their head.
Yeah.
Are you overpowering that voice? Are you having a conversation with that voice? I mean, what's the dynamic between what they're saying to themselves, which is, I'm going to get beat, I'm going to look horrible, I'm going to make a mess out of myself, I mean, all that. Yeah. How do you deal with that? I kind of start with a conversation with that voice that's in their head. Okay.
I read how they're responding to what I'm saying. I start with that, and then I start building that confidence and tell them, hey, look, I know you're nervous. I know you got a lot of people out there. Don't worry about those people. Forget about those people. You're not here for them. You're here for you. And then little by little, I take over that mindset of where their voice is scattered all over the place to that confidence again. Again, it goes back to we prepared our A, B's, and C's. We're ready. We have everything planned. We have a backup plan, and we have a fail-safe to the backup plan. We're ready for what comes our way.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So for an individual who's getting ready for, again, a customer meeting, which compared to what you're talking about is not even the same realm, but it can be scary, right?
Yeah, it's terrifying.
I mean, I've got a friend who his business is in a very volatile stage. Every customer meeting potentially means his whole family's financial future is done, right? So that's super real for him.
That's way worse than fighting. Way worse.
Right. It's funny. Some people might disagree with that. But in his world, it is real, right? And it is the alternative is very painful. He doesn't have a coach. I guess I'm kind of a coach to him, and he's got some other support system around him. But he's doing it on his own. So I guess I'm just pointing out that some of the fabulous things you just shared that you provide your students with as a coach are what we can do for ourselves, where we listen to that conversation. Listen, it doesn't matter what everybody else is out here for. You just need to focus on this customer. You need to focus at the task on hand. You prepared for this. You're ready. It'll be okay. Those are the kinds of conversations that I could imagine and have had with myself when I'm worked up to the point of maybe being ineffective, to de-escalate and breathe, right? To de-escalate so I can be effective at what I set out to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's, sometimes you have to be your own voice in your own head.
Your own coach.
Yeah, that's it. There's no one there for you, or they're not telling you what you want to hear. You have to be that voice in your own head. Say, all right, well, cut the shit out. Let's knock it off. Let's get back on track. We're here for a task. We have to finish this is our mission. We're going to finish our mission, and then you have to be your own voice of reason sometimes, but luckily, most of the time in the fight game, we have a coach that does that for us.
Oh, it's so great.
It helps, yeah.
So what's the distinction where that conversation becomes confidence, where somebody, again, I can feel it, where somebody gets, you know what, I'm showing up. I'm bringing what I got. It's okay. I mean, can you pull that apart for us at all, or have you experienced that?
As far as like physical characteristics, I can usually tell.
Yeah.
As I'm talking to people, I can see their posture change. If I'm I use wrapping hands a lot because that's usually the realest moment of a fight. And when you're wrapping somebody's hands, usually they're sitting in a chair like this. They have another chair in front of them. They got their hands over this, and I'm sitting over there wrapping their hands up. And I can tell by the way their hands are formed, shaped, the tension in them, the way they're sitting, and they're looking in their eyes and their posture. So you read the whole body. I read everything they're doing, and I can see everything they're doing. Like I'm reading a book because I've been there so many times, right?
Yeah.
So as I'm rapping, if I see somebody kind of like slouched over and their head is down, and they're kind of like a little bit of fear and doubt in their mind, and then I'll start talking, give them the positive. If their head is down and they're kind of relaxing and meditating, I'll stay quiet. I can read their energy and know that, all right, this guy's, he's focusing, he's dialing in right now. So similar movement, but a totally different thing. And I can tell their hands might be trembling or tight or tense, or, if I tell them move their hand over and it's like super tight, I'm like, all right, this guy's nervous, he's scared. And I'll start telling jokes, or I'll break his mind from that. And then I start feeding those seeds of confidence back to him again. Like, hey, let's think about what you've done in training to prepare for this. And we go back to that whole circle again and build that confidence again. It's amazing how body language tells us so much as coaches. It tells us how to react to what they're doing. They'll never tell you. Fighter will never tell you. They'll never say, I'm worried about this. What if I do that? You might hear a little bit, but most of it is body language. I could read them. They're jumping around nervous and pacing like caged animals. I'm like, he's got a lot of anxiety. He's got 50 people out there watching him fight, and he's a little worried about it. And so we'll distract him from that. And
that's great.
It all comes back full circle again, yeah.
Well, and we talked about the quality of coaches and mentors and those kinds of things. And one of the things I appreciate about what you just said is the distinctions. If I was wrapping somebody's hands, I wouldn't have seen a small percentage of everything you saw because you've been there. Yeah. You've done it. You felt it.
Yeah.
So you're able to read that book in a way that somebody who doesn't have those same experience can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true. Yeah, it's so true. Walking the walk and being there, over and over, repetitions like we talked about earlier. Repetitions is so important. Having those reps and knowing that I've been there a million times so I could see it.
Yeah. Well, Malcolm Gladwell's wrote a book about 10,000 reps, and when the difference between an amateur and an expert is 10,000 reps, or 10,000 hours, I should say. And it's interesting to think back to the people that I've seen that are absolutely at the top of their game. How many hours do they have into their craft? And like for you, we add a few zeros to that probably.
Yeah, it's countless, yeah.
But those hours all bring, amateur, beginner to intermediate to expert, and then there and beyond. And I think that the there and beyond is probably somebody who can teach to the level that you can, where you can see all of those distinctions that somebody else may not without so many hours in the game. And I think for business people, it's the same thing. If you're looking for a coach or a mentor, you want somebody who's got tens of thousands of hours because they have the kinds of distinctions you're describing. Yeah. But in a business world or in a specific industry or trade or whatever it is, they can bring a whole lot more to the game for somebody who's wanting to shorten their path to success than somebody
absolutely, yeah,
who has not.
And in the martial arts, there's a saying. It says, "Don't fear the man who knows 1,000 moves. Fear the man who knows one move and does it 1,000 times."
Yeah,
that's the way to do it. Just because you know 1,000 things doesn't make you great. Owning that thing and knowing, mastering something, then that's the guy to be worried about.
Yeah. So when's it time to walk away?
So if it's always different for everybody. That's always a kind of a tough situation. Sometimes it's when injuries are catching up to you. Fighting is we take a beating. Our bodies take a beating in training every day. It's training, working out, getting into fights and sparring and matches, all that stuff. Your body takes a beating. Sometimes it's when your body's just not performing like it was what it used to be. Sometimes it's when you're mentally beat. Some guys give up. They've lost 3, 4, 5 fights in a row and they're like, that's it, I'm done. I don't have the mental strength to push through this. Other guys can push through that and keep going. Sometimes, like for me, it was health issues. I had some health issues and I had no choice. I was forced to retire. I actually tried to squeeze in one more judo tournament before my heart surgery. I had a heart problem and my cardiologist said, hey, listen, you've got some stuff going on. We're not sure exactly what it is yet, but keep doing your normal routine until we figure it out. I'm like, all right, fine. So I signed up for the East Coast Judo Championships. And my wife turned me into my doctor. She ratted me out. She said, hey, he signed up for this competition. And so he called me in his office and he goes, are you fucking crazy? You can't do this judo tournament. He goes, I said, well, look, doc, you said stay to my usual routine. Competition's part of my usual routine.
Yeah.
He says, well, if you take one fall, it could be your last fall. I said, well, I don't plan on falling, so I don't see the problem, right? He didn't find it as funny as I did. He's like, no, you can't do it. And, we wound up, again, my ego was getting the better of me because it's my fight drive. I was so driven to fight and I was thinking like, oh man, but I love this competition. Me and my buddy trained for it. And I beat my buddy in training all the time. He wanted the whole thing, which was a very bittersweet because I was super stoked for him. But I was like, I could have won it. But I was like, but that forced me into retirement. I had to stop fighting and start coaching. But on the back end of that, it wound up being the best blessing in disguise out of anything because that forced me to become a better coach. When I was fighting and coaching, I had to focus on me and everybody else.
Interesting.
And it splits my drive. You know, I'm focused on me. I'm getting my reps in, getting my training in. But now I'm working with you guys too. Once I was forced to retire, it forced me to step back and only focus on the fighters. And man, it just opened up a whole new world for me. I was like, this is so great. Like, you know, I had my run. It was awesome. I fought in everything there was to fight in. I competed in everything. I was super happy with my career. Would I like to keep fighting? Of course. You know, like I tell everybody all the time, I walk them out to the cage. I have to stop right here, and they get to go in. I said, I'm always the bridesmaid, never the bride. You know, and I get to stop right at the altar. I can't get, you know, but I miss it. But I love the fact of being able to pour everything into the fighters now, and just being that beacon of light and hope for them to learn from. And it's pretty cool. It's amazing how that all came around full circle.
It is, yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought up Sandra. So I'll switch gears a little bit here. But how long have you been married?
Well, we've been together 36 years. We've been married 27 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's been a long time.
Knowing her and seeing you two together, I mean, she is just on your team.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, and what an amazing team to have.
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a support system's important, right? You need a really good support system, and that's what we're very blessed to have.
Well, it's extraordinary. And when Audrey and I, my wife and I, were talking with her, she was talking about how Average Joe's, which is the name of your gym here in Prescott, that's really a ministry for you in a lot of ways, and you're feeding people through that in a lot of ways, and contributing to people who need leadership and mentorship and guidance. And when I think about purpose and, you know, what drives people to do what they do, it's amazing to go from having the career you had to having the purpose of giving back in such a powerful way. And I just think it's extraordinary. And that you get to do it together.
That's it's the most amazing thing. It really is. You know, we started training together when we started dating way back when I was 21 years old. We started dating, and you know, I told her when I met her, look, this is a package deal. I come with training. You know, this is all part of it. I fight, I train, we do our thing, and she was right on board from the beginning. She's like, I want to train too. I was like, all right, cool. So I'd take her around to seminars, and she trained with me at seminars, come do classes and stuff. And before you know it, she got the bug and fell in love with training. And now she's the head coach at the gym. That's it. Every student that comes through that door has to train with her first. That's it. She goes through all the fundamentals and basics with them, and then builds that confidence and helps me ministry kind of thing, like you said. And we help a lot of people, which is super, super cool. And it's really amazing to do it together. Like be able to, I have a friend of mine on the other side of the world, and he's gone through the opposite. His wife doesn't like training at all, doesn't like martial arts, and he loves it. And it's an uncomfortable situation. It sucks when you don't jive on the same page, but we're super blessed to be on that same page and just moving forward together all the time. That's awesome.
That's great. Yeah. And she's strong. I mean, I remember when I started at the gym, she hit me in the head because I let my guard down.
She does that. Yeah.
So she gave me instant feedback for where I was let my guard down.
Right.
And I learned a lot from that.
You learn quick. Pain's a good teacher.
Right. That it is. So let's talk about Freedom Ranch, which is, I know, another passion of yours.
Yeah,
and we'll put in the show notes how to reach Freedom Ranch. But share with us how you got started in that. And I know it's a business. It's really a charity thing.
Yeah.
But tell us about it.
So Freedom Ranch is an animal sanctuary. It's a farm animal sanctuary. We rescue farm animals that need help from whether it's a bad environment they're coming from, that they're mistreated, sometimes just need to be rehomed for one reason or another. Somebody's moving or they just can't afford to take care of an animal. So we try to take in as many animals as we can that need homes, and we rehome them, either keep them with us, most of them stay with us forever, just because I love animals. And we'll adopt out anything we have to find a good, positive home for them. But it's kind of funny because I tell everybody it's my yin and yang. I'm a fighter, but then I have this huge passion for animals. Like I love animals. I just love my peaceful times being out, sitting with my goats or my cows or the horses, and just being out in nature with the animals, just kind of decompressing a little bit and winding down. And it's super cool. Everything it's all donation and volunteer based. It's basically just a money pit for me, but I just love animals. So, we're always looking for anyone to donate and help us out with finances, but we do everything out of pocket. Everything just out of the love of animals. I wanted to be a veterinarian when I was a kid. And I come to realize that veterinarian school is harder than actual doctor school. And I was like, well, I don't have what it takes to be a doctor. Forget about a veterinarian. I'll just go fight. My sister works for NASA. She's a rocket scientist for real. She really is. And I'm the fighter. So she got the brains. I got the brawn. That's where we left it off on that deal. But with that passion from animals, for wanting to be a veterinarian as a kid, that stayed true my whole life. Always wanted animals, always took care of them. So now we have a little bit of property and we're able to actually give a home to these animals. And I'm super thrilled about it. I love it. It's cool. We get a lot of animals in need, things that are just have had a hard life, and they come to us and they live their best life out until the end.
That's
pretty
great.
Cool.
Yeah, and it is a great cause. So I encourage anybody who's listening that wants to contribute to it to do so. When you had your volunteer day and we came and helped and got some stuff done, my son still talks about, my youngest son, Hudson, who's 11, he still talks about just some of the animals, and he remembers the names, which I can't remember, but he remembers the name, and your turkey,
Felipe.
Felipe. Anyway, it's an amazing cause, and you're doing great work.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah. Anybody wants to check it out, it's freedomranchprescott.com is our thing. So
perfect. We'll put that in the show notes as well. So last question for you. So many people who are passionate about something in my world, business, entrepreneurship, they're go. Oftentimes, personal parts of their lives fall apart. They can't maintain balance, or they just get so driven that they don't see anything else that's going on. I know you're very passionate about what you do and you work hard and you put in a lot of time. How do you manage balance so that John's a healthy person?
That's a good question. I guess it comes back to my animals too, right?
Yeah.
So my fight training and my animal time is important, but carving out time for yourself is super important. And I've been on the other side of that coin where I've grinded myself at the ground. I had a full-time job. I was working, 10, 12, sometimes 16-hour days, still running 4 schools at the same time. It was, hectic with the wife and a newborn baby at the time. And, it was insane trying to manage all that stuff at once. And I was grinding completely. And then at some point I had to take a step back and look and say, all right, just like I talked about before, stick that jab and breathe, making the outside. So I'd take a step back and take a couple deep breaths and say, all right, what's really important here? How do I get this balance? I need this family time, me time, work time, and I have to find this balance. And for me, it works out that luckily my whole family is involved with the ranch, so that's our family time always. So every day we have to take care of the animals. So it's a come together time for whether it's just me and my wife or one of my sons get involved. It's a great kind of disconnect from business time, from school time, and then work on that. And then we, do our weekend time and whatever else we can do, just to kind of offset. But yeah, it's very easy to get caught in a rut of just grinding all the time, head forward and grinding. But you need to make that me time. It's so important.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you again for being here. Yeah, it's a true honor, and we could do this all day long.
For sure.
And there will be another episode. Part 3 will be coming, and we'll spend some more time with John, and we'll be talking about the event, which again, in combat sports, actually being in the event and the fight and in the combat. And then also how to deal with failure and adversity and some of the things that come along with that, because we all experience it. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode as much as I have, and I look forward to seeing you next time. And that's a wrap on today's episode. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and got some valuable insights into the world of buying and selling businesses. Want to be a guest on our show? If you have a deal that you'd like to discuss with us or a business story to share, we'd love to hear from you. Shoot us an email using the contact information below in the episode notes, and let's make this happen. Never miss an episode. Make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. And if you found today's episode helpful, please leave us a review. It helps more people like you find the show.